In the vast, cold emptiness of space, the Galactic Confederation was breathing its last breath. For centuries, they had maintained a delicate balance of peace and cooperation among hundreds of advanced civilizations. But now, everything was falling. Apart, the Imperial forces, led by a ruthless and calculating species known as the Dominion, had been systematically destroying planetary systems, crushing resistance, and expanding their territory with a level of brutality that shocked even the most hardened space travelers. Their warships, massive and dark as death itself, moved through star systems like silent predators, leaving nothing but dust and memories in their wake. Wu Choi sat in the communication center of the last remaining Confederation stronghold. His hands were trembling slightly as he prepared the most important transmission in galactic history. Around him, holographic displays showed the ongoing destruction, entire planetary networks collapsing, defense systems crumbling, and millions of lives being erased with cold efficiency. The Confederation's leaders had spent weeks debating their final option. Every traditional strategy had failed. Diplomatic negotiations, military counterattacks, technological defenses, all had been crushed under the Dominion's relentless advance. They needed something different, something unexpected. That something was Earth. Humans were a relatively unknown species to the galactic community. Most advanced civilizations had monitored Earth, but considered them primitive, chaotic, and largely irrelevant. They were a young species, still wrestling with their own internal conflicts, seemingly too disorganized to be of any strategic value. But Wu Choi and the remaining council members saw something else. They saw potential. They saw an unpredictability that might just be their last hope. The transmission was carefully encoded, compressed into a data packet that would bypass conventional communication barriers. It contained not just a plea, but comprehensive data about the Dominion, their technological weaknesses, strategic patterns, and the complete history of their brutal expansion. If anyone can find a way to stop them, the Council had decided, it might be humans. As Wu's fingers moved across the quantum communication interface, he felt a mix of desperation and hope. This was their final chance. A transmission that would either save what remained of their civilization or be the last message they ever sent. The data packet shot through space, traveling faster than light, carrying with it the hopes of countless civilizations. It would reach Earth, a small blue planet most galactic species had overlooked, with a simple, urgent message. Humanity, you are our last resort. Millions of light years away, on a planet busy with its own complex problems, this transmission would soon change everything. Governments would debate, scientists would analyze, military strategists would calculate. But something fundamental was about to shift. Humans, for the first time, would realize they were not alone. And more importantly, they would be asked to save a galaxy they barely knew existed. Wu Choi leaned back in his chair, watching the transmission indicator. Green, sent, received. The message was now beyond their control. Outside the communication center's reinforced windows, another Dominion battleship appeared, its massive weapons charging. Wu knew their stronghold had mere hours, perhaps minutes, before complete destruction. But somewhere in the vast cosmic network, a message of hope was traveling. A desperate call to a species most considered insignificant. A final, impossible hope. Humanity had been called. And soon, the galaxy would understand what that truly meant. The transmission arrived at a moment when Earth was experiencing its own internal tensions. Global networks flickered with the encrypted message, passing through multiple international security systems before landing on the desks of key government and military officials. Jay Park, a reserved strategic analyst at the Global Defense Intelligence Center, was the first to fully decode the alien transmission, his computer screens filled with complex star charts, technological schematics, and historical data about an interstellar conflict humans knew nothing about. "This can't be real," he muttered, running his fingers through his short, slightly messy hair. Within hours, a small team of experts was assembled. They represented different disciplines: military strategy, quantum physics, xenobiology, and advanced computational analysis. Each brought a unique perspective to understanding the alien message. Hana Kim, a former Special Forces commander with a background in technological warfare, studied the Dominion's battle strategies. Her sharp eyes caught patterns that traditional military analysts would have missed. The alien empire's warfare wasn't just about firepower. It was about systematic destruction of communication networks and strategic infrastructure. Kyung Lee, a brilliant quantum physicist, began analyzing the technological data. The transmission contained intricate details about quantum communication networks, energy distribution systems, and technological vulnerabilities that most species would consider top-secret information. "They're not just asking for help," Kyung-hee explained during their first briefing. "They're giving us a complete blueprint of their technological ecosystem." The team worked in a secure facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Outside, the world continued its normal routine. People went to work, children attended school, global economies fluctuated. They had no idea that a decision about the fate of an entire galaxy was being made in this underground room. Jay Park's approach was methodical. He didn't just look at the military potential, he analyzed the socio-political implications. Humans helping alien civilizations against an oppressive empire could fundamentally change Earth's position in a potential galactic community. Days turned into weeks. Sophisticated AI systems processed the transmission, cross-referencing every piece of data. The more they learned, the more extraordinary the situation became. The Dominion wasn't just a military force. They were a systematic, almost mechanical civilization that consumed resources and territories with machine-like precision. Their entire culture was built around expansion and elimination of potential threats. They've destroyed over 247 planetary systems, Hana noted, her voice cold and professional, and they're accelerating. The team's initial skepticism transformed into a growing understanding of the critical nature of their potential mission. This wasn't just about helping unknown alien civilizations. This was about preventing a potential threat that could eventually reach Earth. Kyung's quantum research revealed something even more interesting. The Dominion's technological systems had a fundamental weakness in their communication infrastructure. A well-designed technological attack could potentially disable their entire network. "They're powerful," Kyung explained, "but they're also predictable, and predictability is a vulnerability." As their research continued, the team realized they were looking at more than a call for help. They were looking at an opportunity to not just assist an alien civilization, but to potentially establish humanity's first significant interstellar relationship. Jay Park understood the bigger picture. This wasn't just a military decision. This was a moment that could define humanity's future among the stars. "We're going to need more than just military strategy," he told his team. "We're going to need creativity, adaptability, and something they won't expect." The team looked at each other, a mix of excitement and serious determination in their eyes. They were about to embark on a journey no human had ever attempted before. The assessment was complete. Humanity's response was being prepared. And somewhere, in the vast darkness of space, an alien civilization was waiting, hoping that this small, seemingly chaotic species would be their salvation. The preparation happened faster than anyone expected. Humanity mobilized with a speed that surprised even the most optimistic members of the Global Defense Intelligence Team. Jay Park's team developed something revolutionary: adaptive AI systems that could learn and modify strategies in real time. These weren't just computer programs. They were intelligent networks capable of predicting and countering complex alien technological defenses. Kyung Lee's quantum research team created special communication devices that could bypass traditional communication barriers. They essentially designed a technological skeleton key that could unlock any communication network. The first prototype weapon system looked nothing like traditional military equipment. It was a compact drone system, smaller than a typical household appliance, but capable of generating complex computational strategies faster than any known technological system. Military training centers around the world began specialized programs. Soldiers were no longer trained for traditional ground combat. They were trained to think like adaptive computer systems, to move with unpredictability, to become living strategy algorithms. Hana Kim personally designed the training program. Her approach was simple: break every traditional military rule. Where conventional warfare demanded structure, she demanded chaos. Where traditional strategies required predictable movements, she demanded randomness. "We are not fighting a human enemy," she would tell her recruits. "We are fighting a system that understands patterns, so we will become a system without patterns." The first test runs were extraordinary. Small drone squadrons could neutralize complex defense networks in minutes. They didn't just destroy. They confused, disrupted, and dismantled technological systems with surgical precision. Global resources were redirected. Manufacturing plants that once produced consumer electronics were now creating these adaptive drone systems. Technology companies competed to contribute their most advanced computational designs. What made humanity's approach unique was their willingness to take risks. Where alien civilizations had rigid, hierarchical decision-making processes, humans embraced uncertainty. Every team member was encouraged to suggest radical ideas, no matter how impossible they seemed. The first strike was carefully planned. Instead of attacking a major Dominion stronghold, they would target a smaller communication relay station. This would be a message, a demonstration of human capability. On the chosen day, a small team of 6 specially trained operators sat in a hidden underground facility. Their equipment looked more like advanced gaming stations than military control centers. Each operator controlled multiple drone units through quantum-entangled communication networks. The target was a Dominion communication relay near a distant star system. Traditional military analysis would have considered it an impossible mission. The relay was protected by multiple layers of advanced defense systems. But Jay Park's team had discovered something interesting. The Dominion's defense systems, while advanced, followed predictable computational logic. They could be tricked, confused, and ultimately defeated. The drone swarm launched. Instead of a direct attack, they began sending complex, contradictory communication signals. It was like unleashing 1,000,000 different languages simultaneously into a single communication channel. The Dominion's defense systems began to collapse, not through destruction, but through complete computational confusion. Their rigid logical systems couldn't process the chaotic human approach. Within 17 minutes, the entire communication relay was neutralized. No explosions, no traditional warfare, just a complete technological shutdown. Back on Earth, Jay Park watched the mission data with a slight smile. This wasn't just a military operation. This was a statement. Humanity had just shown the galaxy that they were not just another species to be conquered. The first strike was complete, and the Dominion would soon learn that humans were nothing, like any enemy they had ever encountered. The first full-scale engagement happened unexpectedly near the Orion Cluster, a region of space the Dominion considered its most secure territory. They never anticipated humans would attack so quickly after their initial communication relay disruption. Sung Huang, the primary Imperial Fleet commander, watched in disbelief as human drone squadrons appeared seemingly from nowhere. Their movement patterns defied every known combat simulation in Dominion databases. The human attack wasn't about destroying ships. It was about creating total technological chaos. Each drone operated with a level of independent intelligence that shocked the Imperial defense systems. They didn't follow traditional attack patterns. They moved like living organisms, adapting and changing strategies millisecond by millisecond. Jay Park had designed these drones to be more than weapons. They were complex computational systems that could learn and modify their strategies in real time. Where traditional military units followed rigid commands, these drones functioned like a collective intelligence, each unit communicating and adjusting strategies faster than any known technological system. The first wave of attacks targeted communication networks. Suddenly, Dominion ships lost coordination. Their precise, mathematically calculated formations began to break apart. Commanders found their communication channels flooding with nonsensical data streams, effectively blinding their tactical systems. Hana Kim watched the engagement from the Earth-based command center. Her team had prepared for this moment, running thousands of computational simulations. But the actual engagement was beyond their most optimistic predictions. Human drones didn't just attack, they confused. They introduced computational noise that made Dominion systems essentially useless. It was like watching a precise machine suddenly develop a complex neurological disorder. Kyung Lee's quantum communication systems played a role. They had developed a technology that could simultaneously exist in multiple communication frequencies, making traditional interception impossible. The Dominion's advanced tracking systems couldn't lock onto these constantly shifting signals. The ship battle lasted less than 3 standard hours, but in those 3 hours, the Dominion lost more strategic assets than in the previous decade of their galactic expansion. Sung Huang's command ship became a perfect example of human technological warfare. Suddenly, his navigation systems showed impossible scenarios. Weapon systems began targeting their own ships. Communication networks collapsed into streams of incomprehensible data. "This is impossible," Sung whispered, watching his carefully constructed defense systems disintegrate. But it was happening. Humans had introduced a level of technological unpredictability that the Dominion's rigid, logic-based systems couldn't comprehend. They weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of technological warfare. The human approach was revolutionary. Where traditional military strategies focused on destruction, they focused on disruption. Each drone was essentially a complex problem-solving unit that could adapt faster than any known computational system. By the engagement's end, the Dominion had lost over 60% of their forward communication and defense networks, and they had barely seen an actual human soldier. These were machines, but machines designed with a uniquely human characteristic: creativity. J. Park understood something profound. This wasn't just a military engagement. This was a demonstration of human potential, a message to the galaxy that humanity was not just another species to be categorized or conquered. Back on Earth, celebrations were muted. The team knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would adapt. They would try to understand this new, unpredictable enemy. But for now they had made their first statement, loud and clear. Humanity had arrived in the galactic arena, and they were nothing like anyone expected. The final phase of liberation unfolded with a speed that shocked the entire galactic community. What began as a desperate call from alien civilizations had transformed into humanity's most significant interstellar mission. J. Park's strategy was simple yet revolutionary: complete technological and psychological disruption of the Dominion's infrastructure. They weren't just fighting a war. They were dismantling an entire imperial system. Wu Choi, the original diplomatic liaison who had sent the initial transmission, watched in amazement as human forces moved through star systems. Their approach was nothing like traditional military campaigns. They didn't conquer territories, they neutralized systems. Quantum adaptive drones became the primary weapon. These weren't just machines, but complex computational networks that could think, adapt, and strategize faster than any known technological system. Each drone functioned like a living organism, communicating and adjusting strategies in milliseconds. The Dominion's massive battleships, once considered invincible, became vulnerable. Their communication networks collapsed. Weapon systems turned against themselves. Navigation computers generated impossible scenarios that paralyzed entire fleets. Hana Kim led the strategic operations from Earth's underground command center. Her team had transformed warfare into a complex computational game. They weren't destroying ships. They were solving intricate technological puzzles that disabled entire imperial networks. Kyung Lee's quantum communication technology proved to be the ultimate weapon. They had created a system that could exist simultaneously across multiple communication frequencies, making traditional tracking and interception impossible. Months of continuous operations reduced the Dominion from a seemingly invincible empire to scattered, confused remnants. They had encountered an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. The liberation wasn't just about military victory. It was a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Smaller civilizations that had lived in fear for generations began to rebuild. The Dominion's grip, once considered unbreakable, had been completely shattered. Sung Huang, the former Imperial Fleet commander, watched his civilizations collapse with a mixture of fear and respect. Humans had done what no other species had, even considered possible. They had defeated an empire not through brute force but through intelligent, adaptive strategy. The final engagement occurred near the Dominion's central command system. Instead of a massive battle, it was more like a complex computational shutdown. Human drones introduced such complex, contradictory data streams that the entire Imperial communication network essentially collapsed from internal confusion. No massive explosions. No traditional warfare, just a complete technological dismantling that left the Dominion unable to coordinate or respond. Wu Choi stood beside Jay Park, watching the final Imperial ships surrender. The transmission that had been sent months ago, a desperate plea from a dying civilization, had transformed into something extraordinary. "We called humans," he whispered, and they answered. Global celebrations on Earth were surprisingly subdued. This wasn't about victory or conquest. This was about demonstrating humanity's potential. They had shown the galaxy that they were not just another species to be categorized or controlled. The liberation revealed something profound about human capabilities. Where other civilizations saw rigid systems and mathematical preciseness, humans saw opportunities for creativity, adaptation, and unexpected solutions. Diplomatic discussions began almost immediately. The liberated civilizations wanted to understand the species that had saved them. Humans had become more than just another galactic species. They had become a symbol of hope, innovation, and unexpected potential. Jay Park knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had changed, and humanity's role in it would never be the same. The Dominion had fallen, not through traditional warfare, but through a uniquely human approach that combined technology, creativity, and unwillingness to break every known rule.